Hi. So I'm going to have a look at the Plug-in Alliance ACME Opticom. It's an emulation of an optical compressor. And it's not one that jumped out at me when it first came out. It's something I was interested in because I've got a lot of compressors and a lot of emulations, and it just didn't sound to me like something I'd want to check out. And I listened to something on YouTube where somebody was demonstrating it and it didn't jump out at me. But somebody recently recommended I should check it out and said it was really good, so I thought I'd try it, and actually I really do like it. It's got a unique flavor to it, and unique characters to the way it deals with certain types of material, which I think really stands up on its own really well with certain types of material. So we're going to have a look at that, and like any optical compressors do what they do. They're not super versatile. You can't actually, on this one you can control the response to some degree, fast, slow, and normal speeds, but it's not like a compressor where you can really fine tune the attack and release and anything like that, and the way it responds to the signal is unique to the way optical circuits work, and that's what's good about them. And this one is quite a dirty compressor in the sense that it's got a fair amount of saturation, especially in the upper mids. It claims that it has mainly saturation in the lows, and it does, but I find that also it has in the upper mids too, and even in the highs. But it's nice saturation, and on certain sources it really is great. So I thought we'd have a look at that, and hopefully you'll find it useful. And so let's have a look. So here we are with the Altec Opticom Plug-in Alliance. I'll go through the controls first. We've got a bypass here, input-output meter, input gain. This obviously drives compression, drives into the compressor circuit, but it also adds saturation. So the more you drive this up, the more saturation you get. Then we have the response time, and it's fast, normal, and slow. So you don't get a separate attack and release. You get different attack and release responses depending on where you set this. And it doesn't just change the attack and release characteristics. It really changes more than that, the sound of the compressor. I mean, for example, as you go faster, you definitely get more saturation, significantly more. And it really changes the sound quite a bit, as you'll hear. Next we have the output gain, which is really just a gain matching thing, and then we have the gain reduction meter, and finally we have two controls here. This, you can vary the amount of noise, turn off the noise if you want, and this allows you to turn off the compression but leave the saturation sound, so you can drive the saturation as much as you like without having any compression if you just want the saturation, because it does have quite a unique saturation sound, and so it's quite handy to have that actually. And here we have a bypass here, the usual Plug-in Alliance things here for copy and paste and so forth. I'm going to be using this bypass button, so you can see it going on and off. So I'm going to start here with bass. The bass sound already sounds quite bright and quite drivey sounding, and you can hear, I'll play it how it sits in the mix, and then also solo it so you can hear what it's like with and without this, and then we'll change some of the settings. So we'll start without it, and we'll hear the whole mix with the bass. And now we'll play it on its own so you can hear what that's like. So as you can hear, it's quite a kind of bitey sort of aggressive sound. It doesn't seem to have that much solid low end to it, and we could add that with EQ, but I think we're going to find that this does what we need for the low end. You can actually hear the drums. I don't know if you noticed, but on the bass you can actually hear the drums, and it might make you think that it's an amped up bass and they're leaking through the mic, but actually no, it's a DI'd bass, but it's an old, like a vintage bass with old pickups, and they're actually picking up the drums through the pickups, which you do get when you get a certain amount of some old pickups can get a bit microphonic. But then they also have that sort of sound about them as well. So just so you understand what's going on with that, it is in fact a DI bass, as it says here. So now let's start with, I'm going to keep it soloed and we're going to bring this in and out, and you can hear the difference. And I think what I'll do before I start messing with it, I'm just going to leave it on normal here, and you can see the gain is fairly healthy amount of gain. And then I'm going to play it with the track so you can hear what difference it makes in and out. And then we'll come back here and start messing with the controls. Okay, so I'll play it first soloed in and out. So you can hear it's controlling the bass quite hard in a nice way. To my ears, it really brings out the nice upper tone of the bass, and I think that's going to make the bass a lot easier to hear in the mix. So let's now hear it in the mix, and I'll do the same thing. I'll start with it out, and then I'll bring it in and out. So yeah, for me that really works nicely. It holds the bass together nicely. It holds it nice and smooth and firmly, so that you can really hear it moving with the kick drum. And it seems to bring the low end out, and I don't know why that is, because it doesn't really add low end a lot, but I think what it is that actually in this track the kick drum is providing more low end than the bass, and the bass doesn't need that much low end because it's all coming from the kick, which has quite a lot of sub in it. So I think holding it tight like this is doing in a kind of smooth, tight way is allowing the kick drum to kind of almost create the illusion that the bass has more low end in it, just because the whole thing sounds more like a solid unit with the kick drum. So at least that's how I hear it. So now let's solo the bass again and start messing with the control. So first thing I'm going to do is change this response time, because that changes it, as you'll hear, quite a bit. So I hope that was easy to hear the difference between these. They each have quite a different compression characteristic. The whole thing sounds a bit different. Drove it a bit harder there just so you could hear what it was like with a bit more drive, and hear that you get significant amounts of saturation coming in a nice way, really nice sounding saturation. So let's now move over to drums. I'm going to put this on the drum bus, and I'm going to solo the drums. So I hear the drums on their own first of all, and then we'll hear them. I'll engage this, and then I'll start messing with the controls. So hopefully you could hear the difference. Well, obviously you could hear the difference. It's even more apparent on the drums. Really very different characteristics. I mean, down here it was really clamping down on the snare significantly, particularly the snare, interestingly, and the kick drum was coming through a lot. You know, it was being less affected, and then as we went through here, the snare was less clamped on, but the whole kit got much more crushed by the time we got up here. Really nice sounding to my ears. I mean, if you're looking for that aggressive drum sound, it's quite unique what this one does. It really doesn't sound, I mean, I've got loads of compressors that do this kind of thing when you drive the drums into them, but none of them sound anything like this. It's the same with the bass. Really sounds different and unique. I wish they'd put a mix control like up here, as Plugin Alliance do on some of their plugins. They add these extra controls, and it would have been great to have a mix control up here. But nonetheless, it's a very nice sounding compressor, and a great addition, I think, to the arsenal, despite the fact that when I first saw this, I thought, oh no, not another compressor. And it was only that, as I mentioned before, that somebody recommended it to me, so I gave the demo a try, and was very quickly taken with it. It really does have a special sound, a great sound to it. So I hope this was useful. If you found it useful, please do give the video a like, and please do subscribe, and hope to see you next time.